This is the Comics Alternative Interviews, a conversation with Chris Miskiewicz and Palle Schmidt. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Comics Alternative Interviews. I'm Derek, one of the two guys with PhDs talking about comics. And on this episode, I'm going to be talking with Chris Miskiewicz and Palle Schmidt. They are the creative team behind Thomas Alsop from Boom Studios, the second volume of which will be released this week. But before we get into that conversation, I want to let all of you know that this episode of the Comics Alternative Interviews is brought to you by the great folks at Discount Comic Book Service. Go to their website, dcbservice.com, for all of your comics pre-ordering needs. There, you're going to find all DC, Marvel, Image, and Dark Horse titles at 40% off of the cover price if you pre-order. For all of the other publishers, you'll find that those discounts are 20 to 35% off of the cover price, and every single month you're going to find some incredible specials. Sometimes those specials could be as much as 45% off the cover price, sometimes as much as 50% off cover, but often you can find discounts that are more impressive than that. And if you go to dcbservice.com right now, you'll find the first volume of Thomas Alsop at 35% off of the cover price. So you can pick up that first volume, which came out last year, for $9.74. So it's a great place to get your comics. That's dcbservice.com. Go there for all of your comics pre-ordering needs. And after you do get your books there, please be sure to send them an email and tell them that the two guys with PhDs sent you. I have a really nice time talking with Chris and Palle on this interview episode. And in fact, as you will hear toward the beginning of our conversation, this is an interview that was a long time in coming. I actually did interview both Chris and Palle last year when the first volume of Thomas Alsop was released, but we had some technical difficulties with that recording to where it could not be used. But now that the second volume of Thomas Alsop is about to be released, we thought that it would be a perfect opportunity to revisit that interview, and so here you go, my conversation with Chris Miskiewicz and Palle Schmidt. I'm happy to have on the Comics Alternative Chris Miskiewicz and Palle Schmidt. They are the creators behind Thomas Alsop, the second volume of which is going to come out this week from Boom Studios. Chris and Palle, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Derek.
Thanks,
Pleasure
man.
to be here.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
In fact, I should welcome you back to the podcast, and our listeners may be scratching their heads about that because they think, well, we've never heard anything from these guys before on the Comics Alternative. A little backstory here. Last year, back in May of 2015, I talked with both of you soon after the publication of this first volume of Thomas Alsop, and we had an incredible conversation that went on for, I think, 50 minutes before a storm swept through the Dallas area and cut off the power in the middle of our conversation, and it corrupted the file. So there was no way for me to salvage that interview, unfortunately. But I thought it was great. We had a wonderful conversation, but we thought that instead of giving it a second try, last year with the first volume out, we'd wait until this second volume of Thomas Alsop is released, and it's finally going to be released this week.
That's true, and it is a shame for just, it was the greatest podcast that was ever recorded.
It was profoundly.
I was in a bar not that long ago with Mark Maron, and he heard about it as well, and he came up to me, and he was just like, "Hey, man, that storm in Dallas, that effing storm in Dallas, man," and bought me a shot and moved on. But but we're gonna try here. We're gonna try.
It's like the White Album or something.
Yeah.
The lost podcast. podcast interview.
Yeah.
Yep.
So let's begin with a discussion of the second volume of Thomas Alsop, which is a little more than a year after the first volume came out. So can you tell us a little of the backstory as to why it took a little longer to get this second volume?
Yeah, sure. It's mostly from what I've been explained, the commerce of comics. It just kept getting pushed a bit. It pushed a bit from our publisher. Why that is, I'm not exactly sure. But I think as far as their scheduling, there wasn't a hard date or a larger conversation about the sequel or season 2. So I think they were just kind of holding on to it a bit longer, possibly with that later in mind, something like that. It just kind of, sadly, it just took a little bit. It took a little bit longer than Palle and I would have hoped for it to have hit the shelves. But it is coming out, and it kind of the two volume 1 and 2, which sort of completes season 1 of it, if you look at it that way. It kind of looks great. Scott Newman did a great design job on it. Man, the guy's just fantastic. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I don't know if your listeners are familiar with Thomas Alsop as a book, or maybe Chris, you want to explain the concept a little bit? Do you want to do it? Should I do it, or do you want to?
Yeah, sure. I think you should do it this time.
So Thomas Alsop is a magical protector of the island of Manhattan.
All right, I'll do it. All right, I'm going to do it. All right, I'll do it. I'll do it. Here we go.
Thanks for cutting me off there, pal.
It's like I'm interviewing a married couple.
Well, we've been at this a little bit. Thomas Alsop's a story of a family that got cursed 300 years ago by the Mesopotamian Indians to be the hand of the island, like the magical protector of any kind of hocus pocus that comes through town. Yeah, but there's a kind of more of a grander, pitch way you do it, pal. You got to kind of spread it out. Anyway. Since it's a curse, when one guy in the family passes, someone else through the bloodline wakes up the next day as the hand, and we have there's 18 of them, I believe, in the 300 years that this has been going on in New York, and this volume showcases the current hand, Thomas Alsop, who is a bit of he's a celebrity ghost hunter and has a show on our version of MTV where he goes out busting ghosts in a kind of parody type of way, as well as the first hand, Richard, and they're both on a case throughout the 8 issues of season 1 that involves has a big plot line involving 9/11. That's kind of season 1 of Thomas Alsop. Yeah.
Now you've referred several times
back and forth between 1702 and the 2011. So basically, the first hand of the island, Richard Alsop, and the current Thomas Alsop are investigating the same case 300 years apart. So that's a nice little detail to the book, that it doesn't just take place in the present time, but flashes back and forth.
Now, Palle, you mentioned this back and forth between contemporary times and, early colonial America. And then you've also, Chris, mentioned the first season or season 1 several times, which suggests that there's at least a second season in the works, or at least in your heads. And I was wondering if that's indeed the case. Are you currently at work on a second season? Can we expect one?
We have plans for more. The scripts are the scripts for what would be season 2 and 3 are complete, and season 4 is almost done as well. Sorry for my lunatic laugh right there. It's kind of crazy when I say it out loud. So, but yeah, we have plans for. There's a larger tale kind of at play with this whole thing. It's a family story. In the end, it's really a generational story that's going on in a big circle. But let's see. We'll see about that.
So subsequent seasons or volumes, whatever we want to call them, won't focus only or primarily on Thomas. We could have one looking at, let's say, the original hand, Richard Alsop, or it could be any of the generations in between.
Yeah, kind of. Although this one, season 1, really focused primarily on Tom. You could just say the second lead, in a sense, was Richard, because it does keep going back to the events that he's causing and trying to deal with in 1720 as well. So, but yes, you could say that. You could almost say season 4 would totally be about Richard. Hint.
Then I won't have to do color, so that's great.
No, it would be mostly black and white, wouldn't it? Oh, that would be that's true. Check you out. Huh. It would be primarily
I had
black
this planned
and white.
all along. Yeah.
Oh, you sneaky, you big sneaky.
Now, with this first outing with the Alsop family, you're dealing with some really sensitive issues. You've already mentioned 9/11 and the potential touchiness of that topic, especially for your character Tom in the story. But you also introduce issues of race in America. And so I think that with this first volume or this first season, the first 2 books, you are hitting upon, I think, many resonant issues. So to me, it seemed like reading these first 8 issues, right? Because volume 1 is issues 1 and 4, and volume 2 is 5 through 8.
Yep.
There's a lot packed into all of that.
It was. Pitching this originally, it was brave and smart of Boom to grab it, because brave because it does deal with some pretty big concepts for comics, and that's a testament to them, and they're looking to curate new talent. They did grab this before anyone else that we were pitching it to at that point, and did a really decent job putting it out. Someone else from another podcast was saying it's a testament to show what you can do in comics, dealing with subject matter that isn't just people in underwear flying and punching and that kind of thing. That said, it's a really thick book. It's more like the Magnolia-verse in its scope. But although that's all fantasy magic, this touches on realism in America, with half of the characters and the historical settings being real people and the other half being Alsops made up for the story. It was not an easy sell, It was not an easy sell to get this sold, but it also was an incredibly easy sell once you knew the entire through line for what season 1 would be. I had always said from the beginning, I keep saying it, that every reason you hate Thomas Alsop, in the first few chapters, is the reason by issue 8 you'll be in love with him and crying for him and wanting more. And that ended up being true. It was also sort of planned throughout the story. There's no way you could handle a subject as delicate as 9/11 and his major arc for the second volume being that the discovery that the 3,000 people who died there, their souls were still present due to the part of the tale that happened in the 1700s, and Thomas has to conduct a televised mass exorcism to get them home, so to speak. And this is done on TV, and it's exactly what you would think it would be like if someone did such a thing at the 10-year anniversary now. So writing this realism and fantasy with a topic that the entire time is interwoven to who the character is, but at face value, the flash of it seems disrespectful. It was all really challenging. And then, of course, slavery in the 1700s. I think we did okay. I have to say, those were a lot of sharp rocks for us to sail that ship against. And there are a couple cliche moments that you're sure we're going to crash into and don't. And it was, working with Palle, we had a really, really intimate amount of conversations about this and what we were doing and why we were doing it and how it was going to be perceived and how the American market would take, and would look at that attention and did it anyway. And it did work out. Thankfully, it worked out.
Yeah. I mean, we have not had any reviews say that it was disrespectful or anything like that. Everybody said we were, yeah.
Yeah, there was this feeling though that there was each issue, everyone was holding their breath, like, oh my God, is the surfboard going to go down? Are they going to crash? Is this the one where they jump the shark? But it's a very heartfelt, personal story when you look at it, all the way through, and it kind of, thankfully that translated, from concept to the page.
Right. Yeah, and it was so great to be working on the book, and then the reviews start coming in, and the books start being out in stores, and you walk in, and they know about it. And, oh yeah, you're the guy that. Oh wow, we love that book, and we pushed that book pretty hard. It was just great to be able to walk into a comic store, and they kind of already know who you are, and know about the book and all that while I was drawing it. I'd never tried anything like that before. I've had books come out and then that long silence until the first couple of reviews start dripping in. But this, I mean, every month we got 5, 8, 10 reviews sometimes. It was pretty massive. The character of Tom, for whatever reason, he really did touch people in a way, and both they hated him and secretly loved this guy, his sarcasm, his bravado. So it was interesting to see the reactions, but it was sort of like a very Howard Stern kind of moment within the comic, about the comic, from people. You hated Howard Stern when he was early Stern, and then there's that Private Parts movie that everyone's seen. You all know the story. I don't have to talk about Stern, but there was something similar within that. With that, what I keep finding at cons, which is interesting, is people coming up with the original 8 issues to get signed, and they all usually have some really, really kind words about the whole story, and ask for more or ask about if there'll be more, that kind of thing. Yeah, which is nice. It's just really nice. It's never just fanboy like, yeah, dude. It's always a very thoughtful conversation about the book, which is. Yeah, the con floor is a strange place to have thoughtful conversations and stuff.
So during the entire 8-issue run, again, getting back to the 9/11 bedrock of the story,
Sure.
You didn't get any criticism at all in any of the reviews, formal or informal, about focusing in any way on 9/11?
No, that was what was amazing about it. No one... It just didn't come. I think that was what people were going to wait for as reviewers, and then they dropped the ball on the final thing. It would have been easy to just say, give a "what the fuck is this" moment, and that was there. There was a review or two I remember early on that was just like, "What the fuck is this?" But but the general gist, no, we didn't get that. We didn't get that. I think it was a hold your breath moment all the way through for people. And again, luckily, we did pull that off. Not like
there was one guy who was pissed at us because we weren't, because it wasn't a Hellblazer book, basically. He spent his entire review just praising Hellblazer and saying, why isn't it that? Well, said it was that. Sorry, dude.
I enjoyed that review. Actually, he talked very little. He talked very little about what we were doing, and only spoke about Hellblazer. And it was just like, well, right on. I like that was a good series. Thank you. I agree with some of your points about Hellblazer. Thank you.
Well, the character Thomas Alsop is very much like Hellblazer, except he craves the spotlight, which whereas Constantine shrinks from that kind of attention.
Right. He's there's no way, I've said this, there's no way to do an urban magician in the now and not get a reference of Doctor Strange or Constantine put upon you, or put upon that character as it should be. That is the guy, that is the mold, the bedrock of those characters as far as modern stories go right now anyway. And he totally has that, middle finger in your face vibe to him, AKA Constantine.
Yeah,
sure.
And we should mention that in this story, Thomas Alsop, the protagonist Thomas, he is reviled, especially in the second volume, and because people are accusing him of using the tragedy of 9/11 for his own benefit. But what you seem to be saying is you got no negative reaction about your use of 9/11, and I'm wondering if maybe as creators, writers and artists, you feel that it's much easier now, 15 years later, to engage with 9/11 than it was just 8-10 years ago.
No, I don't. I mean, when we had conversations with Boom about the possible removal of that plot line early on in talks, and Palle and I felt that was the heart of the story, as is revealed why in issue 8, in the final chapter, and very much held to our guns and didn't do that. Not that it was being thrust upon us or anything. It was just an editorial conversation. They were fearful of repercussions on their brand at putting a national tragedy in the spotlight of, a piece of fiction that they're putting out. It's a very real conversation. It's a very real concern. It's comics, not, I don't know what version of media would be okay to, put it out. In the end, I had done a lot of research going into those conversations about that, and I think there were 28 references in 2014 when we were in, talks or were about to put this out, that had used 9/11 or the Trade Center or something like that in media, both within comics and films and, novels and TV shows. So it was sort of becoming a moot point. I keep seeing on Hulu or one of my thousands of streaming apps that I have on my iPad, an ad for some show right now, and there's the Trade Center in 1996 and the current Trade Center now. Between the two images, it's a time travel piece. So that image alone, you look at that and you go, it's still there. It's still present, I feel, in fiction, at least in the U.S., Yeah,
but that conversation with Boom helped the book, I think, because from that came the idea of putting these essays in the back that really help bring across some of the research that you put into it, Chris, and also how the book kind of came about, and all these personal stories from your life as you're born and raised in New York. So that really helped, I think, to put it across to the audience that this wasn't some douche somewhere that had just thought of using 9/11 as a springboard for some stupid story they want to.
Let me be clear. I kind of always thought that they were right to have that conversation too. It really just showed the care they felt over their brand, and the fact that they then kind of like put their arms up and said, like, go for it, guys, and you totally believe in this, which was Matt. That was Matt Gagnon basically just going like, all right, we trust you, go. Once we really talked about that this is a survivor story in essence, not flash fire and fireworks. We're not doing a trick here. Once we did that, it showed. The book got named Best of the Year by USA Today, and and like Geek Sushi and like a million sites and stuff. It was really a testament once again then to a boundary that's a present boundary that's not but is unspoken, maybe spoken of. I don't know. But again, it shows how you can push certain media in comics. I mean, it just did. I always felt like at the end of that, like, just not to pat myself or ourselves on the back, I came away from that experience with that book like, check it out, y'all. Look what you could do in it with a comic book. You can do tonally something like this. Wow. And that was cool. That was a cool thing. So I guess, to your question, it does I feel like there are things you don't really want to touch upon, and at the same time, if you can touch upon it in a new way that's somehow heartfelt, and I know that's a silly heartfelt. What does that mean? But really, if there's something that's human about a story or humane, you could do that in a new way, then I think that's how you could hit upon these taboo subjects like 9/11 in the United States,
Yeah, I mean, the topics were definitely something that attracted me to the book. I mean, the fact that this wasn't just made for pure entertainment, but there was something deeper there. I mean, it was such a layered, epic story that was there even in the script format. I mean, and just through conversations with Chris, I just know that there's so much more there. It's a deep and rich stew, so to speak. It's not fast food. So
just wait until season 2. Season 2, we will rise from the ashes.
Well, what can you tell us about season 2?
That I'm crossing.
Is that the
fingers.
one with the unicorns and the space on the spaceship?
They come in the flying saucer, these unicorns, and they've all been watching his show. And they take him up to Abraxas 8, where I'm totally making this up. Kidding. Season 2 is tentatively called After Alsop. It would be 8 issues again, and it's Tom has a lot to deal with after the
fallout.
The fallout of what he does at the Trade Center. He's up for 28 different criminal counts for all the things he does throughout the 8 issues of Volume 1. Several of which were terrorism charges, which is interesting. I had a nice meeting with my criminal defense attorney when I was scripting what season 2 would be, and we went point for point over what he did in Volume 1 and came up with the charges that New York State would try to try him against. So that was a really fun brunch with a lot of booze and laughing and logging into like a federal site on an iPhone. It was just, but point being, I do a lot of research before I start writing this book. And it takes you to all corners and bars. That said, it's a big story, and he has a lot of fallout, and it really cements his place in New York as the Hand right now, in a much larger way, while setting up really what the big bad is, and the story that I hint at in Volume 1 that you wouldn't even realize was a hint, pre-planning for all of this. It's a big story, and there's a lot of characters that we only touched upon with the Magicians Guild and Perry Salicrup and the Ring. All of that sort of comes up now in a very big way against Thomas, if and when we get to do that.
So there's no date from Boom about when to expect it?
We don't have a date or any real confirmation on if and when they would. But Palle and I at some point will do our best to we'll continue this story and probably and see it to completion. So we'll see what that means. Yeah.
Now, we've talked about some of the, sometimes controversial, definitely, significant, culturally significant, historically significant points that you weave into Thomas Alsop. And, Palle, you mentioned a little while ago that once the first several issues of the series came out, you were starting to get noticed in ways that you hadn't been recognized before. And so I'm wondering in that, what are the differences between, let's say, working on your previous work, such as The Devil's Concubine and the follow-up Stiletto, and then working with Chris on Thomas Alsop? I mean, how did that change the way that you work, if at all, and the way you perceive?
It changed tremendously. I mean, just the fact that I had someone in the trenches with me to share all the good moments and all the bad moments, and someone to talk things through with. That's a huge help, and you can get so much further when you're two people working on something. I mean, with my own books, I first write the script, then I will have someone read through it, and I will get their notes, and then I will start breaking it down into comic book form. But as you probably know, if you've ever opened up a self-help book, there's something called the resistance within all of us, that this little voice that starts unwinding the sweater while you're trying to knit it, and saying that this is no good, and we should just who's going to be interested in this? You're just making this shit up, and why would anybody want to read this book? And making comics, it just takes so damn long. I'm writing it. I mean, Chris can bang out like 3 issues in the time that it takes me to draw half an issue.
Oh, that's not fair. Then I stare at those damn things for probably another 2,000 hours.
So what I'm saying is, it's great that you have someone who's always at the ready to discuss scenes or approaches or whatever. I mean, that's just, for all the lonely work that it is to work on a comic book day after day, week after week, month after month. It's great to have someone on the other end of the phone always. So I could take a picture of the page I'm working on and say, "Hey, how do you like this?" And just get "Oh, that's awesome, dude!" back, to get that motivation going, because it just takes so damn long. I didn't think I wanted that, because I always felt like what I was going for was doing my own books. But in many ways, this feels like my own book. I just didn't write the script for it, but I certainly meddled quite a bit, and I took ownership very much of the characters and the universe, and it's just, it's been a huge privilege to work with Chris on this book. So when you have a bad review or something, you have someone to share that with, and when you get the good ones, the same way. And also, because we're in different time zones, we were able to be like a 24-hour a day
press machine.
Press machine, basically. So I would wake up and see all Chris's tweets, and I could retweet those, and vice versa. So we could kind of keep that going for even longer, because we're 6 hours apart.
We took over the Western world with our tweets.
and just, it's also with Boom, it's been great to get their feedback, and everything has just been running smoothly. You put files in Dropbox, and I remember I sat at the studio with Peter Snybia, who he was my mentor for many years, and did Books of Magic, A God Somewhere. He worked on Preacher and Starman. I did some unbilled assistant work on Starman, but he would draw his original. He would draw the sketch. He would sketch the pages, and then he would ship them via FedEx
to then. Wow!
And a letterer would then letter all the pages, and they would get sent back with balloons on them, and he had to be pretty damn sure not to screw those up. Get ink in them, because then they would have to redo them. So it was always going back and forth that way. And late at night, the fax machine would start making noise in the other room, and you would come in there, and it would just spit out these like many feet of scripts that were coming through in the middle of the night. So it was weird to watch how fast that has moved, and how easy it is now to collaborate with people all over the world. So that's great. And also, just because the books that I've put out have been in one volume, so you only get that one shot of attention. And yeah, if there's one thing I've learned from this, it's definitely break it down into 22-page chapters so it can be spread out a little bit more to get that extra chance of getting in front of people, because there's a new issue out every month.
Well, how did you guys meet one another?
It was Seth Kushner, the late Seth Kushner, my former studio mate, and we co-created. We used to be on ActivateComics.com, which was this grassroots comic site that was founded by Dean Haspiel about 10 years ago. Mm-hmm. Had everyone that was ever trying to do comics putting up free work, a couple of pages per week. And it was technically my first published work. I ended up getting what would be their first anthology comic through there. And Seth was there doing a pretty strange comic for that site as well, because he was a photographer who was trying to, at the time, figure out if he had to write comics, but wanted to put photos into comics. So he started doing these photo comics that nobody else was doing, and he had some stuff up there as well. And anyway, we were at MoCA, the Activate table of that year, and Palle was there with a group of cartoonists, and I had just gone outside or to the bathroom or something and come back to the table, and Seth had like whacked me in the shoulder, knowing I was looking for artists for other chapters of Everywhere, and B, for everything else I would ever be writing. And he whacked my shoulder and was like, "Hey, see that guy over there? That guy in the shirt?" Because Palle was in a collared shirt, and I was like, "Yeah, go talk to him. He's really good." And yes, that was a great Seth Kushner impersonation. Moving on, and I went up to him and we hit it off. I gave him a floppy I had of the first chapter, I think, and asked him if he wanted to do one, and he just showed me. At the time, he showed me. What did you have? The Concubine was out. And you
I had printouts of The Devil's Concubine.
Right?
It wasn't even out yet. It was supposed to come out later in the year. It came out from
Stiletto? I remember you had Stiletto stuff on you, and
something,
and that you had, and that's where I lost my marbles, because he has, he had two styles going at that point, and the style that he had in Stiletto is sort of the precursor of what he did in Thomas Alsop. And without really knowing what the hell I wanted for Thomas Alsop, I knew I needed something other than regular comic line art for that story as well. But I had no fucking idea what that meant either, just a feeling. And that was one of those moments when I remember when Palle showed me those pages, or that would work. I think you had like a floppy of that too, yeah. And I looked at that and I was just like, oh, okay. And so it begins, Palle remembers me pitching him Alsop right there. I remember doing it at a bar later.
He told me about some of the stories you had going on, and I'm pretty sure that you told me about the towers and the ghosts and all that. Where we were just talking. I didn't think it had anything to do with me, but then when I read the floppy that Chris gave me of his Everywhere anthology thing, I just immediately I texted him back like 5 minutes later, having read that, and then I'm in, because it was good writing. It was very. I mean, you as an artist, you're probably more wanted at comics conventions than writers, because there just seems to be sort of a lack of good artists that are available, again, because it takes so long to do comics. And I didn't think of myself as available at all. In fact, I didn't want any kind of job. As I said, I wanted to do my own thing, but I was completely failing at that after just one day in the country with convinced to do this book. But it was this thing. But it was this small thing first. So we started with the Everywhere anthology thing. It was a lot of fun. Just great working with Chris, and then we did the
fish everywhere, mind you.
Fish
the first real Palle Schmidt Miskiewicz collaboration was a story about billions of fish falling from the sky during a heist.
Yeah, I kind of put that heist in there for the sake of me, because I'm into that kind of stuff.
Absolutely. It was absolutely the reason.
Well, that's only appropriate that the fish is a big part of it, because both of you live in areas that have quite a bit of coast.
Oh, that's true.
Hey, hey.
Yeah, it's true. And we have a portion of the city built by Dutch immigrants as well, as Brooklyn is. So same.
I always like to say when I'm traveling in Europe that I'm from an island across the river from a very popular island, which is across the river from New Jersey or the United States. Tell everyone I'm an islander. Let's not talk politics now. Come on.
Why not? Why not? Let's just blow ourselves up. Yeah. Is it November 8th? It's going to be.
Right. It is. It is coming. It is coming soon.
Yeah, things have already blown up over here, Palle.
Yeah.
I know.
Don't you worry though. When candidate Trump gets in, just kidding.
America would be great.
Everybody, I'm just kidding, guys. Just kidding.
Well, maybe on the topic of Trump, let me get to my next question, which is on race in America, because I consider slavery America's original sin, and I found it extremely effective in Thomas Alsop, and this is no spoiler because we find this out in the very first issue, that you embed America's past with race through slavery at the very heart of your plot, especially as it applies to 9/11, because if I remember correctly, issue number 1 ends with Tom watching the news and someone has discovered that part of a ship, a slave ship, had been found in the area of the two towers where they had been, and Thomas says something is amiss, and to me that kind of sums up what it is in terms of the American project. You know, as wonderful as it is ideally, I mean, there's something amiss in the heart of that, and that is, race and the way that we treated minorities and not just Africans.
Where it's built on that, and that's interesting. I mean, it's symbolic, but also very true that it's built on slavery, right? So, in the story, all of the south of Manhattan is built on this landfill made up of, among other things, of course, this old slave ship. I remember I had to draw the World Trade Center site, and I Googled that. And this article came up that a 1700 ship had been found as they were digging out the site. And blood just left my head. I was sitting there like, holy, I hope Chris has seen this before you wrote the story. I mean, Jesus Christ. And I texted him immediately like, dude, tell me you knew about this. And he texted me right back that, yep, that's where the plot came from. So, it mixes just real stuff with fantasy so much. And even Brooklynites, we've talked to other people on podcasts that they don't even always know what's true and what's not. So,
what the 2 points there, the slave ship was a real ship that was uncovered in, I think, 2010. Late 2010, which was just bizarre. They were busting into another foundation area or laying foundation, and they came across the wooden planks, and then they found the tail end, and they pulled it out of there, and I think they took it up somewhere upstate. Last I read, they were trying to figure out where, due to the joints or something about the joints, they were trying to figure out where it was built up there. And they were they traced it back to somewhere in Pennsylvania, had wormwood in it, so it had been in the Caribbean for a while. So anyway, I really was like researching the shit out of this boat when this came into the news. I was just like, what the hell is this? And it kind of got me on a couple of points because it was a slave ship. They had mentioned that there was something about a stove in the bottom and the back that would have been used by people being transported to. That's what it was, I guess. I kind of lost my mind. I started reading about that whole area of Manhattan, which then I found out was basically landfill. It was like landfill 101 for downtown. And Lindsay's Wharf would have been the area that I guess would have been the early banks of where the Trade Center moorings go. And so anyway, I put that in there. It just sort of was like the plot helping me along, real life helping me along for the plot, because I did have that whole angle on Isaiah Bliss and what he's trying to do and why he's trying to raise the dead, and all of that is part of the much larger story that would come out later. But I needed to get that here, and it just made a lot of sense that it would come from Africa and through a shaman, and including slavery in America. One of the cool parts about Thomas Alsop as a story is that since I've been hitting every era, I'm trying to make it racially exact through every era as well. And I mean, if you just look at the cast or the main cast of the first season, he's, his best friend's, New York City black guy, his lawyers from Baltimore, African-American, scary lawyer. He's got like there's everything around him is a normal. His cab driver, Cal Patafi, is Pakistani, born in Berkeley, California. Like, it's a very real slice of the American population right now, condensed in New York City around him, which is fun and good storytelling. I think to do that, you go back to the 1700s. It was hard not to incorporate slavery during Richard's portion of the story. That was the conversation. That was, part of that slice of the population. It was the thing with
back
this.
Then it was witch burnings as well. So it's
that too. So it kind of was. It's the beauty of this story is like once I decided to include 9/11 as a plot point, there was nothing else historically that I kind of couldn't include then. It was always going to be based in that kind of decimal point realism. Dear God, and all of my Google, bookmarks on this history site and that landmark site and all these weird happenings ever since. Yeah. That's what I just... That's the circle I just said, or the tangent I just went off on.
Now it's interesting listening to the two of you speak now, because I'm thinking about the many characters, and you were starting to name them, Chris, in this first volume of Thomas Alsop, or the first season, and it dawned on me that a character that for me I often overlook until I go back and think, have I covered all the characters, is the one main figure in your story that is not American, and that's Emma. And it's curious because she plays such an important role, but when I go back to think through the story and in preparing for the interviews, the times that I have, then I seem to overlook her, but I don't mean that in a negative way. And I'm wondering if you feel that she does have as prominent a role as I feel that she does. And then maybe along with that, are we going to see more of Emma in the second season?
You will see more of Emma. I promise.
I'd love to see more of Emma. We actually talked about just, as a loose idea over a couple of years that it would be cool to make a whole book, like a miniseries, is called Emma Caldwell, and
do like a four issue story about Emma, set the week before she gets the call for this volume we just read. That was
the very end of that.
She just kind of
committed so many crimes and just mayhem in London, and then she gets a text and then she's off.
She gets a phone call from Tom, like, "Hey, I could get you a plane ticket. Wanna come help me out with something?"
Yep.
And then, like, we the next thing we see her in whatever, issue 3, issue 4, McSorley's are getting picked up at the airport. Like, we both thought that would be a really fun slice of what she really is and what she's really doing in the UK. And she's great. And I have a rich history of her and the Caldwells. The Caldwells will come back later in other volumes, not her. And when talking in earlier eras, actually, it's during the Revolutionary War where we see her great, and kind of get into what they are as well. What I like about this is there's a ton of family ties in this story too. It's a generational story that would start to show itself with subsequent seasons. I think she's overlooked a bunch here and there as far as reviews go and such, and people talking about her. And I think that's because she isn't his love interest in this volume as much as she was briefly when they were younger. We see that in the flashbacks in the late 90s with their band and everything at CBGB's and that whole plot line. But in the current 2011 time period, he's not with her. He's with Susie within himself, so to speak. And I think that's partially why she doesn't, because she comes in as a badass. She's sort of the one that does the thing, he knows she's an integral, she's a major part of his plan on how he's going to do this at the end. Like, she's the other big gun. It's very interesting. But I do think it's about the love interest thing. I think that just when people look at plot lines and people look at TV, or you look at the ABC kind of, that would have been a cliche to put in. And I did write it that something happened with them, and I totally took it out because it completely diminished the rest of, I'm not revealing that the final beat, the big dun 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 of the song, unicorns, right? But the unicorns. But like I found like having that in there at one point in an earlier draft just diminished the impact of what I really wanted and what he really should have felt and gone through during the reveal in the final episode. That's why that's all kind of crushing and makes everybody love him in a sense when you get why he's how he is or what he's really been doing, so to speak. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, as we have the story now in Thomas's relationship with Susie, there is no way you could have had in the contemporary 2011 context any kind of relationship between Tom and Emma. No way. It would have just cheapened anything that you were trying to do. You would have been like, wow, he was almost a heartbreaking character. You know what I mean? Instead, he's a dick. Like you couldn't do it. Like, oh, you mean that dick over there? Like, no, the dick magician from New York would have been what you came away with, and that's not who. Although, yes, that's who he is. That's not. It's totally who he is. It's not who he is. It's just who he is.
But I actually just put up a post on thomasalsop.com where I kind of allude to who it is she's punching in the face with a bottle in the ballroom fight scene in 93, 91.
91, 92, 96. I'm kind of
92. Yeah, I was just looking at the post right now. That I wanted to. First thing I wanted to do was kind of figure out what kind of clothes they would wear, and I had to Google for Nirvana's Nevermind, because that's when everybody started wearing plaid shirts, and I really wanted to put her in one of those. And since that came out in 91, I thought it was to be on the safe side. I could easily do that. And then it kind of gave itself that the other guy had to have these like very bright colored 90s sweatshirt thing that tucked into the jeans. Do you remember those?
I'm sorry. I come from an island across the river from a popular city across the river from America. It takes a while for things to get to us out here.
Right.
This Brooklyn place.
Palle, I was going to the Thomas Alsop site as you were mentioning your a recent post, and I see your posting of the visual representation of the Freewheelin Bob Dylan in issue number 6.
Right?
I did not see that originally.
Yeah, he's a smart cookie, this one. He's a smart one, this Palle Schmidt, let me tell you.
Wow. And see, so this was a couple of years ago, and now Bob Dylan is a Nobel Prize winner.
Yeah, true.
He's a Nobel laureate, and maybe it had something to do with what you did.
No, we knew.
Yeah.
We knew then, and we needed to just sort of cement it in the art sphere, the artosphere, so that would be,
Yeah. So I started just compiling a bunch of these little gems, that stuff you probably would have missed just reading through the book, and these little subliminal artsy thingies that we artists like to put in. So I just started compiling a bunch of these posts that are going up as kind of a hype for the second volume. So if you go to thomasalsop.com/news, that's where they all are, and that's where we're going to put reviews and previews and podcasts and whatnot. Just put all of that in there. And on the front page, you can see the phenomenal live action trailer that Chris put together that blew my mind, and continues to do so every time I click play. It's amazing.
That was so much fun to do.
Yeah, these gems are fascinating, and unfortunately, though, right after the one that I saw on the Freewheelin Bob Dylan, I look at another one, gem number 52, where you make a reference to Vanilla Ice, and so you're going from the sublime to the ridiculous right there.
That's true. But he does get punched in the face with a bottle, so I kind of that justifies it somehow.
Yeah, you're right. Now. Both of you have talked about your work on subsequent seasons of Thomas Alsop. What about the possibility of this becoming a television show?
Oh, I'd love to. I mean, I've worked in various capacities in film and TV since getting out of college here in New York, from being a production assistant for 1,000 years to other facets. Anyway, it's kind of my day job since graduating in various capacities, and I'd love it to go to some sort of cable sci-fi Netflix model. I mean, I think it would be a great 8-episode season. Sort of written and designed from the get-go in book form for consumption in that way. You could see where you would blow it up just to fill time, or just where it would get longer than 22 pages of content. But yeah, man.
Yeah, that would be amazing.
Yeah, man. yeah. You know somebody? Give me a call. Hit me up on Twitter right now. I'm ready. Yeah, let's go for coffee.
Now, see, that's interesting coffee. Because, Chris, the way you were just describing what would be nice, you were using, let's say, the Netflix or the Amazon model, where you would have, a particular season, an entire season dropped all at once, right? And that would follow the storyline that you guys have mapped out. I was thinking, though, of something maybe more along the lines of network television, that we've seen something similar, for instance, with Constantine, or even recently Lucifer, where, and this would kind of bastardize Thomas Alsop to a large degree, where you have a mystery with each episode.
Right. If I had my druthers, just because I like using the word druthers, I'd prefer more of a niche in the cable market with it, or in that kind of in another market than network. Yeah, you could completely 22 episode this guy, this bad boy, and turn him into the New York City modern detective. You know, he is the hen of the island. I set it up with that in mind. I mean, you know, the crux of the modern day show is the fact that it's a modern day show of him busting ghosts, and you could do that. The problem, and I think this is why Constantine failed on network. You know, I watched that when that was coming out. We both were like kind of biting our nails because there was possibilities or conversations about. There's been conversations about this for TV since we put it down, you know, in the market, because of every reason that you're bringing up. You know what I mean? It's really kind of ripe for that as well. I think Constantine failed because it really was too much of the, you know, monster of the week, and that is what the comics are, but that's not where the heart of that comic was either. I think you do. This story has a through line that if we were allowed to do it, you know, what we have planned out all the way through, it would, you know, be like the Breaking Bad of magical action adventure shows. It would be like, holy shit, that was some deep shit each season that they hit that connects to this, to that. It's a giant circle. I don't think you could do that and let it have the impact. It wouldn't have the impact of, like, let's say what season 1 had as a book being translated into something that had to be broken up into 22 parts. It would just eventually be every reason why you stop watching a show like that, you know? Like you look at The Flash currently, totally different subject. Like, as far as comic book shows go, I think season 1 of The Flash is like the perfect formula for how you do something like that. But that's light, you know, that's easy. That's as dark as it gets at times. It's never really past PG, you know, CW dark. And that's what that is. And it really, it's like, I'm a fan of it. I think it was one of the best, like, comic book season TV shows of its. I was glued to it. Season 2, they used it as a jumping point to spin a larger universe. Season 3 now, you know, we'll see what season 3 is about. But you couldn't really. That's a different tonal thing, and they could keep flipping that because it's a giant shared universe. I don't think this guy would. It wouldn't have the balls it has as a 22 episode thing. Look at that. I'm shooting my own thing down. I mean, it's great. Come on, ABC. ABC, let's get on this shit. And I got a bridge, and I'm kidding. But I just think that if you could do like 8-10 episodes, cable, HBO, honestly, any of those things, HBO, put it out once a week for 4 months, 3 months, whatever that comes out to. Sure, Showtime, anything where you put it out, like that was season 1, you know, download this now, season 2's coming, it's another 10, 12 episodes. It would fly. That, I think it would fly well. You know what I mean?
Right.
I don't know. What do I know?
You probably know more than me. I mean, yeah.
No, I agree.
Thank you for asking that, though, because it's a good question.
Yeah. Well, it just strikes me as something that would be perfect in that medium, right? With television especially, and whether it's something like the Netflix model or the AMC model, such as with Breaking Bad, you know, it would definitely work there. I don't know about network television with the 20-plus shows. See,
it's hard, right? Yeah, that's like a hard model.
Yeah.
For fiction.
See, I thought that Constantine was good, but apparently I was one of the few people that really enjoyed that series. But to me, I didn't see that it was as much of a problem as what I saw with Lucifer. Now, I think I stopped.
Do you not like Lucifer?
Well, I think I stopped after the first 4 or 5 episodes, and for this reason, it turned into what I was afraid it was going to be when I saw the pilot. Because I saw this and I thought, I mean, I absolutely, you know, love Mike Carey's Lucifer, or, you know, Gaiman Carey's Lucifer.
Yeah, sure.
And I like the new Vertigo Lucifer to a large degree as well. And so I had a lot of high hopes for the television show, but when I saw the pilot, I thought, I wonder if they're going to turn this into a police procedural. And I'll be damned if that's not what it became. And I gave them about 4 or 5 episodes to prove to me otherwise. But the ones that I saw, every new show, there was a problem, a crime to solve, and of course Lucifer and his powers helps out. And that's what it turned into. Now, it could have changed since episode 5 or 6.
That's pretty much what it is.
Yeah. And again, for what it is, I have no problem with. I just didn't want it to be that. I wanted it to be something more akin to, the deeper kind of show you mentioned, like Breaking Bad, or something, let's say the more ambitious kind of comics adaptations that we see with the Marvel Universe, like with Daredevil or Jessica Jones. But no, it wasn't. But again, for what it is, it's okay, I guess. I just quit watching it.
Yeah, I know a lot of people who worked on who are working on the Marvel shows right now, and those things have been coming out kind of great. I liked Jessica Jones too. I have to say, like, it's one of my kind of my little guilty pleasures. I never really just sit down and watch it, but I'll put it on and do shit in my house, and I've watched all of season 1 of Lucifer. I get what you're saying. I have to say, I don't know why, but I really just sort of love that dude who's playing him, and he's just this giant, flamboyant Lucifer. It's like comedy Lucifer. And I'm just like, yeah, man. No, I'm like, but he's just like, hello, lover, welcome. And I'm just like, yeah, man, go, action femme, androgynous womanizer in a convertible Lucifer. Go amok in LA. Show me your week. And I've kind of just enjoyed how ludicrous it is to some degree. That's me. I don't know. I didn't take that one seriously. Constantine, I thought they could have done a little better. It just was a little bit of Monster of the Week Roadshow. That was, I don't know. He's a better character in a way. It's funny that the other one is the one where they went with the procedural. You see, there's a kind of a prime example. Like, who knows what works in that 22, 18 episode range? Like, somehow Lucifer the Cop worked. Cop Lucifer.
Yeah. And I'm wondering, though, if maybe some of Constantine's lack of success was, what was it, on NBC?
I think so.
And they just didn't have a good enough or long enough track record like, let's say, CW has when it comes to superhero properties.
Well, I think S.H.I.E.L.D. is a tough show as well. It's had total sway in the wind seasons. I just think it's hard to do a comic book property, an action fantasy property like that, of that length for that long. It's really soap opera then, and then you're in it for a different math with that kind of longevity. I mean, Star Trek, go for it. It's space soap opera on a boat. Anyway, from the get-go, you're in. You're kind of like, I like the Doctor, the Engineer's cool. Check it out. Robot Men, let's do it. I mean, Doctor Who, it's space opera as well. You could do that. I mean, I always didn't like. It's funny. My friend Nick Abadzis, he's he's a writer artist for Leica, and he's been doing Doctor Who at Titan now since their launch. He kind of got me into everything that they've re-released, all of the new. I'm kind of caught up, and it's funny. I never liked how Doctor Who's MacGuffin, like everything's going wrong. He pulls out a screwdriver, and that in the end somehow fixes the problem. And then I kind of, after getting into how ludicrous it all is, and it's insanity. It's all drugs, Doctor Who. Like, you could do that with like 22 episodes or whatever, because sure, man, what are we doing? We're going in the spinning mailbox or whatever and running through time. It's people in dresses and aliens, and it's great. That you could do, I think, longer episodes of. S.H.I.E.L.D.'s tough. Just to say, current comic book stuff is hard to do, really. For long stretches like that. They should be moving graphic novels, if you would.
Yeah.
Well, outside of
the graphic novel won the what was it, the Silver Bear at the last year or something. or was it Khan? I can't remember. Blue is the Warmest Color. That was based on a comic book, a graphic novel. And
Yes.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, nobody knows.
Yeah.
So whenever people are saying, "Oh, comics are just for kids," well, it did just win the most prestigious film award of a version of the adult adult topics can be handled in comic book form as well. So
I don't think people who aren't into comics think of it as kids anymore with the whole Marvel craze of films. I mean,
well, maybe not, but that's probably in the U.S. that people make that connection. I mean, I think a lot of people know about Daredevil and don't necessarily think of it as a comic, but they think of it as the new Netflix show.
That's
or
interesting.
They think of the Avengers as the new superhero movie, but they don't necessarily make the connection in their head that this is based on comics. I don't know. I don't know if
that's interesting.
It helps bring anybody over, because once they get to the store, it's like, oh, I like that Iron Man dude. Can I get the comic? Yeah, sure. Which one of the 8,000 issues do you want? And oh my God, it's just.
You want to start with Warren?
The one where he's a woman, or
no? You start with Warren Ellis's run. You start with extremism.
Yeah, but you need somebody in the store to be able to tell you that, or you'll just feel like you're standing on the platform and the train is just thundering by, and there's no way to get on it with all this continuity thing. So
I always find people who aren't into comics, just sort of assume when I say I write comics, they immediately ask if it's big two stuff, and sort of have to talk them down into the creator owned or the Oni, the Boom, the Valiant.
You have industry. When people ask me, so I say I make comics, they say, "Oh, what comics do you make?" And I always feel like saying, if I say anything other than Garfield right now, you will have no idea. So why are you even asking what comics am I making? None that you have heard of, I'm sure.
That's interesting.
So, yeah.
Well, Palle, let me ask you there. I mean, do you find yourself both as an artist and a reader of comics more taken?
I don't. I'm like the drug dealer who doesn't take his own drugs. I just peddle them. I don't read.
Oh, okay.
So.
Well, because I was curious if you find yourself more resonant with the American tradition of comics or the European tradition.
Very much. I was very much inspired by the American comics when I was growing up. It seems that creators over here kind of fall into, no, not two camps, but three. So there are people who have grown up reading American superhero comics and Hellboy and all that stuff, Sin City, all the Frank Miller stuff. It's in my veins, and so that's me. I'm in that camp. And then there are these other people who've grown up with the European album tradition of Asterix and the Smurfs and Tintin, Lucky Luke, that kind of stuff. And then there's the third camp, which I only just realized a few years back even existed, and that's the indie comics. Weird, like all the stuff you would find at Angoulême in the sneaky little booths in the back. So it's like all this new graphic novel stuff coming out. Like they will know about Persepolis or maybe Blue is the Warmest Color. I don't know, but it seems like it's a whole other like indie scene. Like weird German black and white pseudo biographical graphic novels. I don't follow that scene, so I can't really name many examples. But it seems that there are definitely a crowd of people who've grown up feeding off that kind of thing, very alternative comics. So yeah, but I felt very much at home coming to the U.S. at my first comics convention, MoCA, where I met Chris. So I said to many people over the years that it felt like I'd been in a box for 10 years, and just coming to that first show just seemed like somebody had finally taken the lid off.
It was a fantastic, fantastic scene in New York that year, like those years around it. A lot of it had to do with the art building that just finally closed a couple of weeks ago in Gowanus, where a lot of it had to do with like Dean Haspiel and all his cronies, and that activated.
That's where you had
site.
Hang Die.
Yeah, Hang Die, and man, there's dozens of studios there over the years. I mean, the greatest thing about going over there in that part of town is just to go to one studio. You usually passed everyone else, and just took 20 minutes to get to your door. Just bullshitting. It was just dozens of dudes and people but their heads bent over working on comics art. It was a fantastic place. But I mean, those years it was a great scene to walk into. That's what I'm getting at. Like, it's kind of the height of when everyone was still in New York before the great art exodus, which just started happening due to New York. Just to what it is.
Yeah,
that was sad. That was sad, huh? How's that? Let's bring it down, everyone. Bring it down.
Well, let's wrap up on a more upbeat note. Let me ask you, okay, in addition to Thomas Alsop, what are each of you working on right now?
Palle?
Yeah, right now I'm working on a graphic novel with a pair of Danish crime writers writing under the pen name of A.J. Kaczynski. They have a book called The Last Good Man that... it says international bestseller on the cover of the Danish edition that I'm kind of working from. So I'm taking that at face value. But it's out in English as well. You can find it on Amazon. But that's being now translated into a 132-page graphic novel by me and me alone.
And what is the title again?
So, The Last Good Man.
Okay.
So it's a story about a Danish cop who finds out that there are these murders taking place all over the world, and there's a connection between them all, and there's a very elaborate pattern going on. So he's basically chasing this killer around, and maybe he's one of the victims, but we don't know for sure. So
soon to be played by Tom Hanks. No.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, it's a very it's actually a very Dan Brown kind of universe that they kind of built up.
Cool.
The books are great, and they're really great people to work with. One is a screenwriter, and the other is a director who I've been a fan of since the early '90s. So it's just I feel very privileged working with them on this book. Although I'm hating every second of it right now because I still have 60 pages to go before my final deadline in December. But that's basically what I've been up to. And then I've put out some more stuff in Denmark. I've published my first real crime novel for adults. No drawings in it at all. It's just a fiction book.
I like no drawings at all.
What? Yeah, no drawings. So yeah, as a writer, I'm putting out stuff over here as well, doing some kids books with my wife that I also illustrate. So yeah, ton of stuff in Denmark, not so much in the U.S. Other than the fact that you mentioned Stiletto earlier. I think I should just plug that because it's up for free on Thrillbent.
Right on.
Yeah, they opened up the gates and everybody can come in and read all the stuff they have there, I think. So that's out there. I would love to see it in print. So if anybody is reading that, they would love to see that in print as well. I'd love to hear from them. So that's on thrillbent.com. And that's kind of what I've been up to.
And that was a follow-up to Devil's Concubine, but it's a standalone, right?
Yeah. The thing I hate most about comics is that whole thing. Kind of alluded to that earlier with my rant on the continuity thing. That just the endless churning out of the same kind of stuff. That kind of I like to have a story with a beginning, a middle, and an end. I'm old-fashioned that way. So I like to put things out that can be read just as a standalone thing.
Word.
If that makes sense. Line went dead, so it's like,
No, well, Chris, what are you up to? Writing, acting, both?
I'm just actually have a week like a week left for my mustache. I've been working on a strange.
On a mustache, yeah.
Yeah. That's kind of. I've been looking at it. I've been the last 4 months. I've been doing my strange acting tech job that I do on an HBO show coming out next year called The Deuce, which has been just taking up a lot of my time as far as what my days are. So I'm kind of happy about that coming to a close. So it's been fun. As far as comics go, next thing that'll be out in print. I was asked by Mark Ondrako to do a story for his Love is Love anthology coming out in a few weeks about the benefit comic for the Orlando shooting that happened a few months ago.
Yeah, that's right.
I did a story in that with Simon Fraser, another Doctor Who alumni. He's been doing Doctor Who comics over there since Titan relaunched it 2 years ago as well. So we did a nice little piece, and I'm actually very proud of that. I was happy for Mark to ask me to be a part of that. Mark's a great guy. Mark's a lot of fun, and it's kind of amazing that he got everybody behind this to do that. As far as other things, I'm hoping to have a few really cool announcements next year. I'm working on 2 different creator-owned properties right now, and one beside Mr. Vincent King's that anyway, I can't say anything yet, but I'm hoping.
It's amazing.
Thank you, Mr. Schmidt. Thank you very much. I should have. I can't talk about that, but I have a lot of things in the works, and like I said, I think next year is going to be a lot of fun. I just can't say anything.
Okay.
You like that creepy laugh?
Okay. Well, yeah. For now. Everyone can look forward to this second volume of Thomas Alsop, which comes out this week. And then they can look forward to both of your future projects, what you're working on now, whether you can tell us about it or not. So, Palle and Chris, I want to thank you for taking the time and talking with me for the Comics Alternative. And hey, we got all the way through this without any technical difficulties or storms or something going down.
Guys, do you see that? Do you see that meteor in the sky? Do you guys see? Oh no, never mind.
Hey, given our several attempts to pull this interview off, I wouldn't doubt that.
That's true. No, we did this. Round of applause for us.
Yes.
Yeah.
We did it.
Guys, thanks again, and good luck with the reception on this second volume.
Thanks for doing this. We appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Thanks again to both Chris and Palle for being on the podcast. I had a great time talking with those guys, and it was great to learn that there's more Thomas Alsop to come. We just have to wait, and it's definitely worth the wait. And remember, if you want to get great discounts on many of your comics, including the first volume of Thomas Alsop, then check out the website of our sponsor, Discount Comic Book Service. If you go to dcbservice.com, you'll find the first volume of Thomas Alsop at 35% off of the cover price. And if you want to get your copy of the second volume, then just go to comicsalternative.com/Amazon, click on the image, and you will go to Amazon. When you purchase it, we'll get a little cut from that referral. So whether you get your Thomas Alsop books through dcbservice.com or through Amazon, you can't go wrong, and you'll be helping out the podcast. And after you do get your comics there, get in touch with us and let us know what you thought about our interview with Chris and Palle. If you go to the website, comicsalternative.com, you'll find that you can leave us a voice message through SpeakPipe, which is a really easy program to use. Or you can call us the old-fashioned way by picking up the phone and dialing 4153-COMICS. That's 415-326-6427. Or you can email us, as many of you do. We're 2guys@comicsalternative.com, or you can contact me directly. I'm Derek at comicsalternative.com. And we're all over social media, so reach out to us via Twitter, Facebook, Tumblr, Instagram, Google+, Goodreads, Pinterest, and YouTube. You can subscribe to the podcast through iTunes. You can stream us on Stitcher. You can find us on TuneIn, on Spotify, and on iHeartRadio. And if you're an Android user, on Google Play Music. But you can find every single one of our podcast episodes, as well as the reviews and the comics-related commentary that we post on our blog, simply by going to the website comicsalternative.com. We've got more fun shows, including interviews, in the days to come, so be sure to listen up for those. And until then, I'm Derek. See you later.